This is CBC Here and Now.
It was just like a bomb went off. It was really terrible.
Just weeks after a deadly crash near Bishop's Falls, witnesses are still struggling with what they saw. Tonight, the first person on the scene tells us his story.
You're back good now?
First, they built it, then they launched it. We'll see how some students in Nain made out with their handmade kayak. Good evening, I'm Peter Cowan and welcome to Here and Now. A man who witnessed a deadly crash near Bishop's Falls last month says he's still struggling with what he saw. Tony Champion lives in Vancouver, but he was in Newfoundland to see his mother. While driving home, he arrived just seconds after a deadly crash that took the lives of 2 truckers. He says the imagery he saw has been stuck in his mind ever since.
I pulled up on the intersection, the middle intersection here by the Tim Hortons, and was going westbound on the Highway 1, and I was behind the Dan Ross truck, and then this other truck came over the crest, and then all of a sudden, it just started come over in the lanes. Oh my God. And it just hit the other one and just crawled right over it like this. Now, the Dan Ross truck was going straight. He was in his own lane. The other truck just came down. It seemed to me it was either a medical emergency or he fell asleep or, it was horrific.
The one on that side just came right over here.
And then, it just smoldered a little bit, and then all of a sudden it just burst into flames and then exploded. And, it was terrible. There was red stuff and pink stuff was flying everywhere, which I realized after was chicken that was in the reefer truck of the Dan Ross truck. Given the fact of how they collided, cab on cab and one into the other, it was no way that anybody was going to survive that. It looked, it was just like a bomb went off. It was really terrible, and you could see that one was plowing over the other one, and then there was. And, as it is, after speaking with some of the firefighters and stuff, they were saying that they thought it was only one truck when they got there. But, wow. It was 2. And it just, and then when the the emergency vehicles came, what I did is they said they needed room and they got to turn things around. So at that point, I turned around and went in the other direction and left the scene because I think that they needed to do their job, and best thing for us to do was get out of there. So, and at the time, my mother's in palliative care in a home on Grenfell Heights, so we were going back and forth to see her, and she's since passed away. With all the emotions going on with my mom's passing, and seeing that, like the next day, it seemed to me that things were moving in slow motion. It was, in the mornings you'd wake up and that's the first thing that you see. It is, it is something that you need to process and to, try to get through it. And, it is an accident. It's unfortunate. These people were killed in that.
Now, Champion says he wanted to speak out about the incident after his brother-in-law was killed in a crash with a transport truck where there were no witnesses and no one knows what happened to him. He says he's now afraid of traveling on the 2-lane highways across the province since there's no physical division between the 2 directions. Champion says he's still thinking about what could have happened if he'd been on the road just seconds earlier. Well, the premiers have wrapped up their meetings in Victoria today with a call for the federal government to chip in more for health care. Newfoundland and Labrador Premier Andrew Furey says Ottawa needs to meet with the provinces and he needs them to pay more than the current 22% that they pay for health care. The federal intergovernmental affairs minister calls that a fake number, and today Furey shot back.
Political rhetoric about 22 versus 35 and who's responsible, Canadians don't care. What they do care is they want a Canadian level, one that we're all proud of, standard of care being delivered across the country from coast to coast to coast. That means that all levels of government have to be at the table in a collaborative effort to solve this problem. People don't care about the 22 versus 35. What they do care is that their mother or their father can't get the surgery, can't get the cancer care that they need right now.
Well, with the little bit of rainfall that we've seen for the eastern half of the island over the last month or so, it's no surprise that the fire hazard map is in the extreme or very high for a good chunk of eastern areas of the island. Across Labrador, though, very much a different story for you. It's been fairly rainy, so we have that low fire risk. Now, as we head through tomorrow, another warm day expected for a good chunk of the island, which means even more areas through central and along the northeast coast are in that extreme fire range. So definitely keep that in mind if you are planning on heading out and enjoying the nice weather over the next couple of days. But for those of you that have been up across Labrador, particularly Lab West, we've been talking about this on social media, but it has been fairly wet. So this is how the first 12 days of July have been. You can see only 2 days, one really, but 2 potential days have been dry for you, and even temperatures. Look at those. You should be sitting around 19 degrees this time of year, but your average temperature over the last 12 days has only been about 14.6. Now, the good news is there is some warmth in the forecast for you. Also, a little bit of rain as well, but I'll get into the full forecast details coming up.
Well, as we told you last night on the show, parents in Mount Pearl are struggling as the city worker strike continues. Due to the work stoppage, some of Mount Pearl's recreation facilities aren't open. Now, one of the affected sites is the Mount Pearl Summit Center, which hosts the city's swimming pools. Coaches and parents say they respect the striking workers, but the lack of pool time will impact competitive swimmers heading to the Canada Games later this summer, and for kids just learning how to swim.
I would classify swimming as an essential life skill to have. Now, my daughter was also enrolled in soccer, which to me, very important, obviously, for children's, mental health and activities and sports. But if you don't know how to kick a soccer ball, that's not something that's life or death. Learning how to swim is something that could save my child's life.
Now we're going to hear more from Kate Finney in about 30 minutes about the impact on the strike on her and her daughter. Now we have an update for you for a story that we first brought you last month. A group of grade 8 students in Nain were building a kayak, a chance to learn traditional skills at school. At the time you may have wondered, well, when they do it, will it actually float? Well, Heidi Adder brings us the latest on the finished boat.
Using the kayak was passed on among Inuit for thousands of years, and it would feel bad to have something go on for thousands of years and then not be the one to pass it on.
Passing on the tradition is just what Nooksack is hoping to do. After months in the workshop, the students were able to take their kayak out on the water for the first time.
To actually bring something back from 1900s, to bring it back to actually learn something for our students here. And it's really good learning because we need stuff like that more coming instead of just leaving it behind.
Kayaks were once widely used throughout the region, but due to trauma from colonialism and newer technologies, Nooksack says the knowledge stopped being passed down.
Because we're losing out our culture and how to do stuff like how we used to, so it's good to bring it back a little bit.
Only one student tipped and went into the water, and they all cheered each other on for their first time in the kayak. Parents, other students, and the RCMP all stopped by to watch the event. Nooksack says he hopes this sparks a lifelong interest in their ancestors and the kayak.
I hope that they, continue on now that they have a connection within their own lifetime to it.
Heidi Adder, CBC News, Nain.
The Nova Scotia gunman who killed 22 people 2 years ago showed a pattern of violence that went back years and drew in dozens of people who came to know him. Evidence released today by the commission investigating the events of April 2020 shows some of the worst encounters. The CBC's Blair Rhodes reports, but first a warning that some of the details are disturbing.
It has already been well documented that Gabriel Wortman was violent to members of his family and his neighbors in Portapique. But today, the evidence widened to include Wortman's denture practice in Dartmouth. Patients told the commission that if they complained about the dentures he provided or fell behind in their payments, he could lash out. Commission counsel described one incident where a neighbor had missed a $50 payment and was confronted by Wortman in the parking lot of his clinic.
The perpetrator became angry, grabbed him by his shoulders and tackled him down to the ground. He put his knee on BK's chest and ripped the dentures out of his mouth. The perpetrator said that when BK gave him his money, he could have his dentures back. BK described being down in the snow and the perpetrator laughing at him while he was on the ground and grabbing a handful of snow and slush and shoving it into BK's mouth.
Hello, my name is Gabriel Wortman.
As complaints from patients mounted, Wortman was eventually disciplined by the regulatory body that oversees denturists. He was fined and had to attend psychological counseling. The commission also heard today from one of the first people to try to raise the alarm about the gunman's violent tendencies. Brenda Forbes was the gunman's neighbor in Portapique until his threatening behavior so unnerved her that she and her husband sold their home and moved away. 6 years before the events of April 2020, Forbes says she called RCMP over reports the gunman was assaulting his longtime partner, Lisa Banfield, and the fact he had illegal guns. Forbes says Banfield came to her for help after one confrontation.
She was scared, really scared. And I offered help and stuff, but she wouldn't take it because she was just too afraid.
Forbes says the RCMP told her they would need more proof before they could investigate the allegations. The RCMP have said officers did meet with Forbes, but the issue of illegal weapons or intimate partner violence never came up. Blair Rhodes, CBC News, Halifax.
Tomorrow night on Here Now, we'll bring you the story of a St. John's woman stuck in her bedroom, waiting since last year for an accessible apartment.
How often do you leave the room, if at all?
Well, not at all, really. I'm from here to the commode, from the commode over to the bed to here.
And that's your life?
That's my life, this past 2 years. Yeah.
Taking a live look outside, another beautiful evening for the eastern half of the island. July so far has been gorgeous. We'll get into the full forecast coming up.
Well, Ashley, I think it's probably a sign of just how nice the weather is. The fact that the only complaint I've been hearing from people, at least in eastern Newfoundland, has been about how dry everything is. Yeah. So that's really a sign that we've been getting some pretty nice warm weather.
Yeah, the flowers definitely wanting more water for sure. Yeah, it has been beautiful. I know every year I've been talking, or I do talk about how many days we hit 20 degrees. And right now in St. John's, we're at 28.
Wow, already, and we're barely into July.
And we're barely into July. And if we put that into perspective, from last year at this time in July, we were at 20. So we're well above pace, which is nice.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Let's take a look at that graphic there. You can see the average that we would normally see is about 53 days around 20 degrees or above. And last year we sat around 69, and then the year before we were at 61. So hopefully this will continue, but if we take a look at where we've been sitting in other areas across the province, Gander at about 30, you average 60, Deer Lake 33, Stephenville not quite there, around 11 is what you're at right now, but you typically see about 45 days at 20 degrees or above. And then Happy Valley Goose Bay at 20, Lab City, unfortunately, you're at 9, and we talked about that already, how your average temperature around this time of year is about 19 anyway. So definitely going to see some warmer air as we move ahead in the next couple of days, but we do have some more rain in the forecast as well. Temperatures today up across the Big Land staying cool, or were cool. 14 degrees in Lab City today, 13 in Happy Valley Goose Bay. And again, you should be sitting around 19, 20 degrees. If you take a look at the temperatures across the rest of the province, or at least across the island, absolutely gorgeous day today. 24 degrees in St. John's, 25 in Gander. And then as you head towards the west coast, Deer Lake and Corner Brook, around 26 degrees today. So certainly a lovely day. Showed you this a little bit earlier, but temperatures right now 21 degrees in St. John's, a bit of a breeze out of the south-southwest, 20 kilometers per hour, and the humidex is sitting at 23 right now. But as we head through the night tonight and into tomorrow, we're going to start to see some muggy conditions. Certainly going to feel humid tomorrow afternoon, and then continuing at least through the first half of Thursday. Then we'll see a big dip in that humidity as we head through the afternoon, staying pretty comfortable as we head through the weekend, but there still will be some humidity in the air for most areas. So taking a look at what's going on right now, lots of cloud cover up across Labrador, where we're seeing those rainy conditions, area of low pressure moving in, and not a whole lot happening across the island today. Some sunshine for most areas except the northern peninsula, where you're seeing some showers. And we're going to start to see that humid air move in, and also some fog patches develop along the south coast and eastern areas of the island as well. Rainfall warnings in place through central Labrador, Happy Valley, Goose Bay, Churchill Falls, and the Valley. And we're talking about 30 to as much as 50 more millimeters falling on top of what's already fallen today. So this will take us through to tomorrow afternoon. You can see where that spreads. Likely we may see those rainfall warnings extend towards the coast. But overall, that's what you're generally looking at. This heavy rain should taper to showers as we get into the morning hours. Taking a look at what's going on, there's that rain moving through the overnight tonight. Not a whole lot happening except, again, the fog patches along the south coast of the island. You may see some drizzle associated with that as well. And then as we get into the morning hours, that shower activity moving towards the northern peninsula. Temperatures tonight staying fairly mild, anywhere from 12 to as much as 17 degrees across the island. Winds a bit breezy for you along the west coast, gusting about 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. And we're going to start to see some warmer air edge in for central and coastal areas of Labrador. So your temperatures are actually going to warm up tonight, 14, 15 degrees by the time you get into the morning hours. Cool, though, for northern and western Labrador. Now, as that system continues to move further east, so showers are going to move right along with it across the island tomorrow. Eventually, it'll taper to showers for you across the Big Land as well. We'll probably see a few showers scattered here and there through the day, but overall, a pretty nice afternoon again tomorrow with some sunshine and milder temperatures. Again, can't rule out the chance of a few showers in the mix as well. But overall, taking a look at those temperatures across the board, another beautiful day. Winds a bit breezy, though, out of the south or southwest between 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. Temperatures in that onshore flow going to be a bit cooler, 15 to 20 degrees right along the south coast. and then 25 degrees again in St. John's. Humidex values, though, feeling more like 28, even 30. Through the day. Central, you're looking at a similar forecast as far as temperatures go, and then Northern Peninsula as well. Going to see those double-digit or 20-degree temperatures return. As far as Labrador goes, temperatures into about 18 for Lab City. The rest of Labrador going to see fairly mild temperatures as well, except for the north. And again, some warm air is coming, but I'll get into those details in the long-range forecast coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. It's certainly beautiful weather to play some soccer, and there was plenty of that happening today in Paradise. The Mount Pearl Soccer Association is celebrating 50 years with a special soccer camp. 150 kids are learning from the pros this week. Here Now's Katie Breen went to check out the action.
Okay, girls, boys, let's get to your next station. We're starting in 1 minute.
I've been playing soccer since I was at least 1.
What do you like about it?
I like all the friendship.
So we're here running a camp for about 150-55 kids from Mount Pearl and surrounding areas. And it's part of our national camp network that we run across the country.
Oh, this is huge. In 2016, Newfoundland and Labrador Soccer Association partnered with the Vancouver Whitecaps, and their program is developing year after year, and it's providing excellent training.
We've did 3 sessions, and my favorite one is probably the one we're doing now.
What are you doing now?
We're playing a game.
Now stand up for a second and just curve your foot like this. Good.
As a local coach, I take a lot away. Different methods that they use over at the Whitecaps all across the country. I take away their management, working with different groups, so the younger kids and the older kids, and just how they interact with the different players.
What are you learning at the camp?
Like how to switch the play.
What does that mean?
Like if you're dribbling up one side and a bunch of defenders are on you, you can switch it to the other side.
What are you learning?
To direct the ball where you're passing and not use the toe, just use your side of your foot.
How do you think that's going to change your game?
Oh, it will make your passes more accurate.
For Mount Pearl Soccer, this is probably one of our best years in decades. We have a registration of almost 1,800 this summer, and that's from our wee little ones, our 3-year-olds, all the way up to our Masters players. Our program is flourishing, and it's not only flourishing in Mount Pearl, but it's flourishing in other associations.
I think it's awesome that we can go to these communities and work with different players, and it's awesome that the clubs are so supportive of this. It gives the players a different experience for a week, a different taste of something maybe they don't experience every week. Without having to travel themselves to Vancouver. So it's an absolute pleasure to be here, and we love coming to Newfoundland every year.
Bye!
Well, still with soccer and kids, one of the heroes of the Olympic Games last year was Stephanie Labbé, the goalkeeper for the Canadian women's soccer team when they won that gold medal. This week, she was sharing her love of the game with some young players in Nova Scotia. The CBC's Colleen Jones was there.
It was a defining moment for Canada's soccer program. With huge saves from Stephanie Labbé, the women's soccer team won Canada's first ever Olympic title in that sport. So it's fitting, here in Dartmouth, where Steph is holding a clinic, she recreates that shootout moment for the kids.
They're going to try to score on me? They're going to try to score on me.
10 shooters have the chance to try and score on her. Finally, Arlo Cunningham manages to find the corner.
It's a very big deal for me.
Why?
Because she's an Olympic goalie.
That's beautiful.
That was a big deal. So was this. The players got to wear her Olympic gold.
The smile on their face, the feeling of the weight of it, I think that all plays into the impact of the medal. And for me, it's just, really realizing how much this medal and our team has had an impact on this entire country. Seeing how many kids across the country from coast to coast are so excited about this. That's what makes me, I think, really happy and excited of what I'm doing here.
Then it was autograph time, where the two-time Olympic medal winner, with the rings tattooed on the back of her arm, signed autographs and water bottles, gloves, and of course, cleats.
My shoe.
You took it right off your foot?
Yep.
It was almost a year ago many of these campers gathered at this Cole Harbour restaurant to watch nervously that gold medal game. None of them thought a year later the Steph LeBay would be here.
We were together and we watched the gold medal game when it happened almost a year ago, and so this is really inspiring for them because it's sort of full circle. We saw the penalty shootout, we saw the Olympic win, and now we are here. Some of them even participating in a penalty shootout with Stephanie, and it's full circle.
Yeah, to watch on TV and then see her in real life, it's pretty cool, yeah.
I learned how to pass and how to defend.
Do you love soccer?
Yeah.
Stephanie LeBay is now retired from playing, but working to bring a pro women's league to Canada.
Every other country in the world has it. Like the top 25 nations in the world, they all have a league. So when you compare ourselves to all of these countries, we're extremely far behind, and there's no excuses for what we haven't done, but we have to continue to move forward.
And for a country that is the reigning Olympic gold soccer champions, she says a pro league is overdue. Colleen Jones, CBC News, Dartmouth.
Of all the work that we've been doing, this project is very exciting.
Next, Bonavista Restoration. We'll take a look at some of the renovations by the Bonavista Townscape Foundation and some of its plans for the future.
Bonavista is a cultural bright spot in Newfoundland and Labrador. The town has been working hard to breathe new life into historic buildings, including this one that we're in right now. This is the Garrick Theatre, and joining me now is someone who has been involved in all of the major projects in Bonavista, Melissa Boyce. So tell us a little bit about this room that we're in.
This room was only recently developed within the last year, and it's what we call the green room. And as you can see, there's a dome. So being in an area where there's not a lot of room, you'll notice outside that it's actually curved with the sidewalk to maximize space and to have the right size of rooms and so on. So this particular room, like I said, was just redeveloped within the last year. And the dome, the reason for the dome is the dome is not an original feature of the Garrick, but it highlights some of the significant architecture here, such as the Orange Hall, which has a dome. So we figured since the building had to be rounded, then what a better feature to add than the dome.
Oh, it certainly is a beautiful feature and so much more to see. Let's go check out the rest of the theater. Sure. So, Melissa, before we get to the main theater, this is something interesting. Can you tell us about this door frame?
Well, this seemed to be the location that performers who come to Bonavista, who all love the Garrick, I must add, just wanted to leave their mark. And, you know, we have some signatures here, some autographs here, more than once, I notice. Bob McDonald, there's several locations that Bob has written his name. We have Sandy Morris, who's a regular here.
Celtic Fiddlers.
Celtic Fiddlers. Yeah. We've had a lot of great musicians here. So this is a joy to see. It was never an open invitation, but it's something that I don't think we'll ever paint over. And eventually we might even have to install new corners to make sure that we have room for growth to add those new autographs.
A bit of welcome graffiti in the Garrick.
Yes, indeed, indeed. Yeah, so it's great to see.
So this is the main theater. It is just beautiful. What can you tell us about the Garrick Theatre?
Well, the Garrick originally opened on Christmas Day, 1945.
Wow.
And it was owned and built by John Bradley. And
so it was built before Newfoundland even joined Canada?
Yes.
Wow.
So originally, well, as you notice now, the seats are red. Back when the Townscape Foundation acquired the property, the seats were blue. And but to go back to the period of when the building was built originally, we put back the red seats since it was symbolic of what was here before. So the theater has 211 seats, and we have a Garrick Summer Series every summer, and we sometimes take live performance events off the circuit with the arts and culture centers. We also offer cinema, not live cinema, but mainstream film.
Yeah, so people can come here, there's a screen that comes down and you can watch a movie.
Definitely.
How important is this building to the community?
Very important. And like all the other work of the Historic Townscape Foundation, we look at it that it's not just about heritage restoration or redevelopment or the Garrick. The overall main goal is to help enhance the quality of life. It's about the quality of life for those who live here. And obviously, you know, we've built on tourism as well after the downturn in the fishery, but the local residents here support the Garrick, and then when we bring in tourists from outside, it's both hand in hand that makes initiatives like the Garrick work.
The Garrick Theatre really seems like the heart of Bonavista, but it's really just one of so many projects happening.
Indeed it is. To give you an idea of the work of the Historic Townscape Foundation, there are two initiatives in our Townscape Management Plan that were identified. One is the Townscape Improvement Initiative, and the other is the Historic Properties Investment Program. And on the Historic Properties Program, we've restored well over 100 properties.
Really?
We have an abundance of heritage properties. We're just building on what we have. Our inventory, I think there are more than 1,000 properties. So we're just building on what we have, our assets. we're not building anything new, we're just keeping what we had and bringing it back to life. And the streetscape development project, we reverted Church Street back to two-way traffic. We've undertaken work on Roper Street and Campbell Street, which is in the area of Bridge House, and that is our next big project.
Wow, this is a really big project. Can you tell us why Bridge House is so special?
Bridge House is very significant. It is the oldest surviving Newfoundland residential structure to which we can identify a date to it when it was built.
Oldest in the province?
Oldest in the province. It was built between 1811 and 1814.
Wow.
So it's the jewel in the crown of all the work that we've been doing. This project is very exciting. There's a lot of excitement surrounding this. We are very much looking forward to it, and it's been on our radar for quite some time.
And what's it going to be once it's restored?
Well, obviously there will need to be interpretation on the property and interpretation on the history of the property in Bonavista, as well as identifying some of the other architectural features on properties in Bonavista. But the main floor will be, we will be seeking private investment to develop a fine dining seafood restaurant.
That sounds lovely.
It's very exciting. And this location, like close to the harbour, overlooking the harbour with the plant nearby, it's going to be experiential tourism. It will certainly build on that.
Yeah. Have you received much interest in that yet?
Oh, there's interest.
I bet.
There's interest. And it's very exciting. So we're, it's happening. We just started this project last week. We're actually into the exploratory work on the foundations now, and so it's happening and it's exciting for sure.
As someone who has a really old home, I know how expensive restorations can be. How much will this cost?
Well, for the house alone, I don't have a breakdown on that, because obviously when you get into heritage properties, you have a plan, and sometimes plans change, right? And involved in this project too, though, there's going to be some streetscape development work to blend the work that we've completed on Roper Street as well as Campbell Street, and so that is added into the cost as well. So we will be closely monitoring the budgets to make sure that as things are revealed with the house, that we are on target.
What is the target?
Well, the total project for both combined with streetscape and the Bridge House development is $2 million, close to $2 million. So
big investment.
It is a big investment. But this house is, like I say, the oldest surviving Newfoundland structure, residential structure. So it's we have to protect it, and it's time.
I bet it's going to be beautiful. Melissa Boyce, thank you so much for showing us this and showing us some of the beautiful gems in Bonavista.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. It was a pleasure.
Tomorrow on CBC Radio's Labrador Morning, find out about a youth leadership program taking place at the Torngat Mountains National Park Base Camp. Then on Crosstalk at lunchtime, they're talking about graveyard restoration in Trinity. Adam Walsh speaks with the director of Black Cat Cemetery Preservation about their projects. A strike by city workers in Mount Pearl has left kids in the middle. Competitive swimmers are scrambling to find pools elsewhere as they get ready for the Canada Games next month. But with picket lines up in front of the Summit Centre, it's also younger kids who are affected as well. Katie Finney's 5-year-old is supposed to be learning to swim this summer. Katie joins us from Mount Pearl. Thanks for joining us.
Hi.
So,
Thanks for having
me. Give me an idea here. How has the strike affected those lessons?
So my daughter was able to go to one swimming lesson that was early last week before the strike started. And then we were told that the whole Summit Center would be shut down as a result of the strike.
Right. So what sort of impact does that have on her and on you?
As a parent, it's a concern for me because I would classify swimming as an essential life skill to have. Now, my daughter was also enrolled in soccer, which to me, very important, obviously, for children's, mental health and activities and sports. But if you don't know how to kick a soccer ball, that's not something that's life or death. Learning how to swim is something that could save my child's life.
You would sort of plan to be able to put her in this activity. What sort of impact does it have on your schedule and in terms of having to try and find other activities for her now?
Yes, well, so she was signed up for 2 activities. And so from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday evenings were all full. And now they're not. So obviously I want to keep her still active. And also the struggle with that, I was going to try to take her to other pools. Now, the Muse Center closes early every day because they have a shortage of lifeguards. And right now, as far as I know, the Paul Reynolds pool is under maintenance. So that is not open to the public. And again, where she's only 5 and she doesn't have the tools to swim properly, I don't feel comfortable taking her to like a pond, something such as Sunshine Camp, especially with the recent tragedy that happened there. There is no supervised lifeguards. It's swim at your own risk, right? So I feel guilty that she's had this taken away from her for pretty much the 3rd year in a row now, because the last 2 years there hasn't been any type of normalcy due to COVID. And so because of that, I am doing other activities with her, which means I'm spending money. But I've already spent my money on soccer and swimming, still haven't been refunded. And, I'm one of the fortunate ones. I have means to be able to take my daughter out and do these things. She's my only child. But I know that some families aren't as lucky as I am. Their money went to the swimming and the soccer. If they don't have the refund, then there might not be that extra money to go out and take, whether it be for ice cream or not.
With the strike ongoing, what do you think the solution here is?
I mean, I would like to say that I do support the workers 100%. I believe that everyone should fight for their equal rights, and I don't agree with what, the city was doing or whatever. But my biggest thing is, especially with COVID the past 2 years, I just don't agree, leave children out of politics.
Well, thank you very much for joining me and sharing your perspective today.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
While a strike is disrupting some summer sports programs here, many people who do have their kids enrolled are feeling the pinch of inflation this summer. As money gets tighter, families are trying to figure out ways to save. And even though children are always a parental priority, sometimes their sports activities have to go. Here's Julia Wong.
10-year-old Kaylee Delaney has a few favorite things about soccer.
I really like just playing around with the other kids and working together.
Kaylee used to play Timbit soccer when she was younger. When that ended, her mom could not afford to sign her up for a local team, and inflation is not helping.
Completely out of reach. I feel bad. You want to give your kids the world.
Registration fees for sports teams can sometimes be hundreds of dollars per child, and experts say those have been on the rise. Throw in equipment and gas, which has been going up, and costs can easily reach into the thousands. David Legg studies kids and sport. He says everything is becoming more expensive.
Because of COVID, there was a decrease in the number of opportunities that were available. And so the few that we're still able to run, were able to increase costs just because of some supply chain issues. I also think the cost of the equipment has increased.
Mohammed Hussein has 3 children on hockey teams. He's cutting back on other things to keep them in sports.
What kind of vacations we take. We're probably down to only one vacation a year. Really cutting back on how much we eat out as well.
Kids Sport helps families with registration fees. It is expecting busy times ahead.
I would anticipate that we'll start to see those numbers increasing.
Greg Ingalls says some sports are starting to adapt.
We are seeing the growth of lower commitment options, I guess, where more of a once or twice a week program as opposed to 4, 5, or 6 days a week.
Experts say there are a couple other ways costs can be curbed. One is for organizations to work together to make sports more affordable. Another, government subsidies for youth sports teams and their facilities, so savings are passed on to families. Julia Wong, CBC News, Edmonton.
Earlier in the show, we played you a little bit of what Premier Andrew Furey had to say attending the Premier's meetings in BC. Well, those provincial politicians wrapped up their 2 days of meetings in Victoria the way it started, with a call on the Prime Minister to sit down and discuss an increase to federal health care funding. David Cochrane is in Victoria and has the latest.
The premiers have been demanding a meeting with the Prime Minister to discuss health funding for months. Now they're running out of patience.
It's past time for the federal government to stop quibbling, to stop saying that we don't have a problem with our publicly funded national health care system.
The growing frustration is clear, raising the political temperature, this blunt dismissal from the Intergovernmental Affairs Minister.
So their 22% figure isn't real.
In an interview Monday with CBC's Power and Politics, Dominic LeBlanc accused the premiers of lowballing the federal share of health spending, complaining about a lack of cash, while some premiers run surpluses or send rebate checks to voters.
Right now, the federal spending to support public health care is about a third of all the spending. They use this fake figure of 22%.
What's not fake is the fact that the Canadian healthcare system is in crisis.
Newfoundland and Labrador Premier Andrew Furey is also a surgeon who still works part-time in a St. John's hospital. He says bickering over funding splits doesn't solve a growing health crisis.
We see it in every province. It's not fake when I have to go in and tell a patient they can't have surgery. That's not fake.
The solution, premiers say, can only start with a meeting. They've been demanding a sit-down with the Prime Minister for months. They're still waiting for a date.
We want to sit down and reimagine Canadian healthcare in 2022. Let's get on with that. That's the message to Ottawa. If they want to go on a talk show and complain about us, that's fine, but no one will thank them for that.
In their private meetings, premiers discuss ways to escalate this fight, with sources telling CBC News they are contemplating a national advertising campaign to spell out the health services patients could lose if provinces don't get more money from Ottawa. David Cochrane, CBC News, Victoria.
Canada's telecommunications regulator is demanding answers from Rogers after its massive service outage last week. The CRTC is also considering calls for a public inquiry into the nationwide system's failure. The CRTC sent Rogers a list of more than 50 detailed written questions. The regulator wants comprehensive answers about the outage itself and how Rogers plans to prevent future failures, the impact on emergency services, past outages suffered by Rogers, and the company's promise to compensate customers. The CRTC calls the outage unacceptable. Rogers has until July 22nd to respond. Ashley, you're normally looking at satellite images of Newfoundland, but before we get to the weather, we want to look at some images from very far away. NASA has unveiled the first images from the new James Webb Space Telescope.
And it might be a close runner-up for our picture of the day, but it captures the furthest away and furthest back in time humans have ever seen. Take a look. This is the deepest, sharpest image ever taken of the universe, and some of the galaxies in this photo are 13 billion light years away.
This is the Southern Ring Nebula. There are two stars in the middle spinning around each other, throwing off gas and dust. This one's called Stephan's Quintet. It shows 5 galaxies. 4 of them are colliding with one another.
And finally, Carina's Nebula. Astronomers call it a stellar nursery. It's a massive cloud of gas and dust where stars are born. Isn't that incredible?
Wonderful.
I saw those pictures.
So, is the weather going to be decent for going outside and looking up in the sky?
Oh, absolutely. They have been for the last couple of days, but we're looking at some humid air moving in tomorrow, and that'll continue through a good chunk of Thursday. Let's take a look at what's going on overnight into Thursday morning. So we're looking at that humid air continuing, but as the system moves through, we're going to see a bit of a wind shift, particularly for the eastern half of the island, and you can see that with those arrows there. So we're going to start to see some onshore flow, which means the temperatures will be absolutely beautiful for the first half of the day. Then once those winds shift to northeasterlies, we're actually going to see a pretty big drop in temperatures through the day. Up across Labrador, you're looking at an unsettled day for the most part. Chance of showers will continue at least through the into the evening hours rather, and you're looking at lots of sunshine through the day though. Temperatures will be somewhere between 18 to 20 degrees, a little cooler for the north, but taking a look at those temperatures across the island, looking beautiful, 20 to 24 degrees. But again, like I said, once we shift into that onshore flow, the evening hours will go from that pretty warm temperature to the temperatures dropping and also that humidity clearing as well. Now, as we look ahead to Thursday evening and into Friday, looking pretty nice to start, but as the day goes on, we'll see those clouds on the increase. We may even see a few showers up across Labrador, and then same thing across the island as well. Now, models they're not agreeing very well on just where we're going to see those showers, but it does look like most of us will be seeing the showers through the day, maybe even a few clearing though for the eastern half. Now again, winds will be onshore, so temperatures will be a bit cooler for the Avalon, only about 18 degrees through the day, into the 20s through central and south coast, and then Labrador as well. You're looking at those similar temperatures. Taking a look at the long range forecast, weekend at this point looking a little rainy to start on Saturday, but should clear out. Sunday looking beautiful and 24 degrees. As far as central Newfoundland goes, you're looking at your temperatures climbing into the mid-20s with some sunshine. Again, showers to start, but then western Newfoundland clearing as well as we get into Sunday. So pretty nice as far as it looks for now. Eastern Labrador, a few showers in the mix right through the weekend. Temperatures finally reaching the 20s again as you get into Lab West by the time we get into the weekend. Had to share this photo. Look at this. Is that not the best camping spot ever? This is Cape St. George. Sharon shared this great shot with us. And if you have any weather photos that you would like to share with us, send them to my Facebook, Twitter, or email at nlphotos@cbc.ca.
What a beautiful place to wake up to, go to bed to. I don't know if that's a sunrise or a sunset. Either way, beautiful spot.
It is. It's beautiful. Yeah, I would definitely like to go there.
And it's nice to see in the forecast a couple more 20-degree days as we tick up, add a few more to that count
keep going.
Just keep rising.
Yeah, I'll take it for sure.
And that's it for us tonight. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great evening, everyone.
Good night.